To go over some critical points that I think are essential in order to really be able to maximize your top end speed capabilities, and we're going to go over that. I'm going to do my treadmill. I'm going to use my current treadmill. I love this thing just because I think it really helps me out in being able to work on my leg cycle overall. And so, one of the things that I like to do, and I've talked about this before, is just being able to just cycle my legs, right? And the importance of being able to cycle your legs effectively. Now, obviously, when you have a treadmill, it makes it a lot easier to be able to work on that leg cycle, but doing it with one leg, and really the important part of the top end speed, being able to maximize your top end speed, is making sure you're able to get your knee up, extend the leg, and then pull through, right? So that ends up being the main thing that I'm doing as I'm working on this. So I'm working on my ability to get my foot up, extend, and then pull through as fast and effectively as I can. Now when I'm doing that, I am trying to be mindful of where my posture is and where my upper body's at, so I'm landing in a position that is able to replicate what it'll be like when I'm at my top end speed. So, that ends up being a big part. And when I'm doing this cycle, another thing real quick is that I do want to make sure that I'm being realistic with my foot contact time. I don't want to end up being too short with my foot contact time, and I don't want to be too long, and then I obviously want to be landing or hitting the ground with about the same position as I would when I'm sprinting, which is going to be, under like the balls of my feet as I'm going through. Alright, so now I'm going to go into some actual sprints, and the big thing that I'm thinking about here is that same knee up, extend, pull, but I'm also trying to sync that up with my upper body. So we do want to be able to sync up the upper body with the lower body when I'm going through this, so I am putting a big emphasis on being able to get my hands back about 6 to 12 inches behind my hips, and then I'm also working on being able to knee up, extend, pull, and I'm utilizing both those key parts to be able to really help me run faster. So again, it's making sure my hands get 6 to 12 inches behind my hips as I'm pulling back and through, and then also being able to get my knee up, extend, and pull, and utilizing those together to help me to run faster. It almost felt like too good, too normal. All right, this one I got. 20, come on. Let's get it. All right, so now we're going to look a little bit deeper into just the sprint in general and the mechanics utilized here. And really, when it comes to top end sprinting, the name of the game is being able to be as efficient as possible, just because when you get to your top speeds, you got to be able to hold that top speed, right? So first thing that you want to do is work to be able to get to your whatever your top speed is, right? So work hard to get into the top speed and understanding, how to get to that position. And then you want to be able to hold top speed, right? So this is going to be within the speed program. You're going to want to hold or get to your top speed and then hold it for 10 meters, right? And then hold it for 20 meters. Okay, and then that will give you the opportunity to continue to build your top speed up. So the mistake that I see is that people kind of stay consistent with just working to get to their top speed, right? Just whatever that top speed is. Now that creates a plateau, because now there becomes a point where now you're at whatever your top speed is. But if you can work on holding your top speed and getting the efficiency there, now you can build up the hamstrings, you build up the core, you build up the strength that you need within even your body, right? Your heart, your again, core, your arm swing, all that ends up making a big difference when it comes to really understanding how to continue to build on top of, your speed. Now, when it comes to top end speed and being efficient, some of the key things that you have to be able to do is when your foot comes off the ground, you don't want to end up spending too much time with your foot going back behind. You want to be immediately driving that knee all the way up and through, right? And utilizing your arm pull to be able to help you in creating the activation needed to be able to pull back down with your legs, right? So you can see that with my right arm, I use my right arm to help pull me back with my left leg, and then vice versa, my left arm helps me pull back with my right leg. So then what ends up being important is the landing and how we're landing, and there ends up being two things that I do here that I want you to be able to see. Now with the left side, you can see how I'm maintaining a little bit more dorsiflexion overall as my foot is coming and hitting the ground, right? And that ends up being, I don't think that's as good, right? You do want to have dorsiflexion in the foot, but watching Usain Bolt and Trayvon Bromell and some of these top guys, the better thing to do is you can see with my right foot as I'm going down into the ground, I'm allowing that foot to go and kind of reach down towards the ground a little bit more not as good as I'd want to, but you want to have a bit of a drop going on within that toe to make it so as you're hitting the ground, the toe, as you're driving the foot through, your foot wants to be up, your toe wants to be up, and then as you're actually striking the ground, you have a bit of plantar flexion downwards. So you can see how my toes staying upwards. I'd want to have a little bit more plantar flexion to help drive that leg coming through, right? And being able to maintain that position. Again, you can see a little bit better on the right side here. I'm landing a little bit too much on the outside part of my foot though. It'd be better if I can get a little bit more to the inside part of the foot and still have the stability there, right? My left side, I landed a little bit better spot overall with the foot, but I don't have as good a stability with that left foot when I land. With my right foot, I land with a little bit better stability. You can see here, this is a better example of me kind of pulling that foot through. But again, you can see I'm landing a little bit more on the outside part of the foot. Now, this isn't a perfect world, right? We're all going to be running a little bit differently, okay? There's top guys that land on the outside part of their foot, right? It's not like it's the end of the world, but we're talking about how you could be as efficient as possible, right? What ends up being the best possible mechanics you can get to is always what I'm continually trying to reach for. And now looking from the front view, what ends up being important here is just trying not to cross over too much, and also trying to land with your legs as straight as possible, right? So when your foot hits the ground, you want to have not only extension within that knee, but you also want to be pretty controlled with how, your body ends up lining up here, right? You don't want to end up having, like your toe facing way out to the side or your knee being way inside. Everything wants to line up pretty well, so then you're able to control each one of the actions. The best way to do that is to have a lot of control in how your leg's cycling through, right? So I see a lot of guys that will send in videos to me and like one leg will end up going way back over to the side or something like that, or they won't be able to get all the way up into their toe range of motion. So you can see, I've worked a lot on my toe range of motion to make it so I can push right up off the ground and everything is in alignment here, right? I'm not going and turning too much off to the side. You can see my foot's going a little bit to the side there as I'm pushing off, but that's just because of the momentum of how you push off the ground, right? You want to be able to generate the most amount of force off the ground as possible, and that ends up being the natural response there. But the better you could do of just driving that toe, so my right side I do a better job, right? See how I get all the way up onto my big toe and drive that knee right straight through? That's best case scenario, right? That's a lot less wasted motion. My left side, I have a little bit more wasted motion here, which then as I come through, it's going to affect my hamstring, it's going to affect my hip range of motion, it's going to affect how well I'm able to generate force in the ground. So all that stuff ends up mattering, right? So you can see how my left leg comes around a little bit more, right? See how it's coming around? That's because of how I pushed off the ground, right? My right side comes right straight through, and now I'm able to strike the ground with a lot better and a more efficient overall force because of how well I'm able to come through. So this ends up just being some key things that you need to be able to understand when it comes to top end speed. I would watch this video a few times to be able to really understand the concepts that come into play when it comes to really maximizing top end speed and making sure you can get to your top end speed and then continue to build off of it. So you want to take video, you want to see what you're doing within that position. I do want to go back real quick and just say that posture ends up being a big part of it as well, right? So when you're going here and you're wanting to sprint, you do want to maintain a very good upright posture, right? Once you start like leaning forward or allowing that foot to come too high up, right? Those end up being two main things that I see, is that people's feet will go too high up, which then allows their posture to come forward, right? You want to be able to really cycle those legs through and maintain a very upright position in order to do so within the spine. And that ends up being, the last really important thing, is that you want to be great with the posture, right? So you want to have a fast turnover speed, right? Be able to control your turnover speed. The best way to be able to do that, or how much, how little or how much time you're spending with your feet off the ground, the best way to control that is to have a very, very consistent spine position, right? So now you can spend about the same amount of time in your front side mechanics as you do your back side mechanics. And then you also want to be very consistent with your arm swing. When your arms end up going all over the place, it creates this thing where now your hips end up having to react to that. And then it's harder to get to your top speed. And most importantly, it's harder to hold your top speed. So the ability that I've got to be able to go from 60 miles an hour to 21 miles an hour is because I've been able to really work on controlling how I am able to perform at top end speed. So now I can go and continue to build off of that. So, it's easy to get to 19 miles an hour. It's hard to go from 19 to 21, and now I'm working to get to 22, right? So the higher I go speed-wise, the more difficulty there is, because when you get to these higher speeds, every little motion makes a big impact on, how fast you end up running. So that ends up being the name of the game here, is how fast can you go and still be in control of your body, in control of your arms, in control of your legs, in control of how your foot hits the ground. And this video will help you in being able to understand the framework of how to really maximize that control to really get to your top end speed faster and more efficiently, right? So if you like the information, go ahead and click that thumbs up down below. Subscribe to the channel if you haven't already. And if you have any questions, comments, or recommendations, you can leave those down below. Check out the description down below. We do have a 28-day free speed program. We do have a regular speed program that we do breakdowns for. You do have a speed breakdown option. The big thing with the 28-day free speed that I'm doing right now is I want you guys to get an opportunity to get better with your speed. Once you can start to understand that the concepts that I'm talking about make sense and are actually working, then you guys will start to be able to buy more into, what I'm doing within the breakdowns, within the programs, just everything I'm doing. So I'm 100% committed to you guys improving your speed. That's why I'm doing the 28-day speed program. It's 100% free for you, no risk for you. You're gonna get a bunch of videos, a bunch of content, a bunch of ability to be able to improve yourself overall. So I'm really excited about doing that, but you gotta take the accountability and want to get faster yourself. And that ends up being, to me, the big difference between most people that have success within the programs and not having success within the program is how committed that they are and how much do they actually want to change within their overall technique and body and everything like that. So if you're committed and wanting to get faster, check out the description, and looking forward to working with you. I'll talk to you soon.